Super Mario Bros. U was the first 2D Mario game I played. It was also the only one. I don't know why, but I just could never really get into it. I think I completed the game, but I never did more than that, which is unusual for me. I usually 100% games. Just something about it just wasn't really interesting. It felt kind of bland. And so when they showed off Super Mario Bros. Wonder, I wasn't really sure if I would like it, but it looked a lot better than the new series of Mario Bros. Games. For once they were actually doing something new. And while I haven't 100%ed the game yet, it's definitely done things a lot better than the other games. First of all, the style of the game is just so much better. Something about the new series of Mario Bros. Games felt kind of bland and plasticky. I don't know, those games played it very safe. They didn't have really many interesting enemies or character designs. I can't even really distinguish the levels in my mind. Like, they just kind of all blend together. Like, I remember there being the grass levels, then ice place, desert, water world. I don't know, I can't really remember them. But when I think back to Wonder, I can easily remember levels like the one with the singing piranha plants, the one where you're floating around in space, the puzzle levels, the one where you're traveling upwards with the music timing with when blocks appear. This game is just so much more memorable. I think one of the main things that makes each of Wonder's levels so special is the fact that there's that Wonder flower in it. Every level has something that's gonna go on with it at some point. Whether it be pipes turning into inchworms, you turning into some sort of creature enemy, everything just getting up and singing, or things just start falling and moving around. Whatever it is, there's always something interesting that happens with a level. That was not the case with the new series of Mario Bros. Games, and because of that, so many levels just blended together and weren't unique at all. I think the game's pacing is also a little better. I mean, I know you can kind of control the pace as the game moves, but with the new Super Mario Bros. Games, they always felt kind of slow. Like, even if you're running at full speed, they weren't moving fast enough. But with Wonder, the levels feel really fast. This seems like it'd be a good game to speedrun. I always really liked the 2D Rayman games, like Rayman Origins and Rayman Legends. I feel like those did 2D platforming really well. And I think Wonder kind of feels like those games more. Those games can move really fast at times, especially with the music levels. And a lot of times Wonder felt like that. There's a lot of times where I just kept running and jumping on blocks and nothing really stopped me. Especially when you've played a level a few times, you can go really fast. Then of course there are the badges, which can really change a level. I think the badges were a really good thing to add, because it kind of allows you to control how you want to play. If you have trouble landing on platforms, you might like that floating cap ability. Or if there's a lot of walls you need to get up, that upwards wall jump ability is helpful. Or if you're insane, you can use one of those crazy ones like the non-stop running badge. It just makes levels more fun and gives a tiny bit of strategy to it. Like, you kind of have to decide going in which one you want to use. I also like that they added a new currency, the purple coins. More collectibles is better, and just having these stand things, even though I never played online, it's nice to collect them. Oh yeah, and they also removed the score system in this game, which I'm glad they did. Score systems are kind of useless unless you're like playing online and have a leaderboard or something. Just playing on your own, a score is useless, so it's good they removed it. Though I still feel like the coins are also kind of useless. I mean, they can give you an extra life once you get 100 of them, but other than that, they're kind of pointless. It would have kind of been nice if they did something like Mario Odyssey where you could buy costumes or something, but I guess that'd be asking too much considering there's all those different characters, and making a costume for each of those characters would be pretty hard. I don't know, I still feel like there could have been something to add to use coins for. Even if it's just like unlocking extra levels or power-ups or something, they could have done something. But still, the purple coins are better than the new Mario Bros. Games. Those didn't even have purple coins, they just had the normal coins, which you couldn't do anything with, except for getting an extra life. I also like that they kind of switched up the areas. Like, it's not just a normal grass world, a normal desert world. They did things differently. The grass world's kind of blue-like, and there's just a lot of areas and levels that feel very different. Like, when you go into space, with those pink puffy clouds, the colors of the levels in this game is a lot different and a lot more memorable. This game has so much more style to it than the new series of games. All the characters and enemies in this game feel more like they're an animation than an actual 3D model. When you're making an animation, you can really exaggerate things. I mean, you're drawing every single frame, so you can get creative. But with a 3D model, you're limited to the rig, and so posing that can get kind of tricky and limiting. But with this game, they did it really well. So many of the characters just have such good expressions. Like, I remember with these Goombas, if you kill one of them and they're next to another one, they get absolutely terrified. I've never seen so much fear in a Goomba. They always just seem so stagnant and just walking forward mindlessly. But now you can really see that they're scared, and I kind of feel bad for them. Or like how this Koopa Troopa will give you an evil glare when you're walking by him. I didn't know they're so aggressive. And then of course, all the animations and the characters are so much more unique. You can really see that when you look at the stands, like all the positions of Mario and Luigi and stuff. They're all very different and exaggerated. Like when Mario gets a fire flower, then goes into this cool fire flower pose and looks like he's about to throw it in your face. I feel like the most interesting pose Mario got into in the new Super Mario Bros. Games was like when he used that acorn power up. Or like when he ground pounded. Like he didn't move much in those games. He basically just had walking, running, ground pounding, sliding, I think. I don't know, there weren't much at all. He barely moved. But now every time he does something, it's animated very distinctly from any of the others. I feel like you could just tell what a character is doing just by their animations alone. They don't reuse Eddie. This game also has really good music. I really don't remember any of the songs from the new Mario Bros. Games. They were just too basic and not memorable. But this game the music is great. I can remember a lot of the themes. I really like the music in those like enemy killing mini games. It kind of sounds like there's a lot of horns and it's kind of bombastic. And on each floor, there seems to be a different theme, but it's kind of similar to all the other themes. Like at first you think you're listening to the same song, but then you realize it's different. And it changes every floor. I don't know, I really like that. I also really like that snow theme. It's fairly soft, but it has a quick pace to it. Or how the music goes all weird when you get a Wonder Flower. There wasn't a single point I got tired of the music in the game, and there were many times when I was glad to hear a theme again. This is a game I'm definitely going to go back to listen to the soundtrack for. I don't think I've ever listened to the soundtrack for any of the new Super Mario Bros. Games. I think a problem with the new Super Mario Bros. Games was that something about it felt very plastic, sterile, just lifeless. Even though the worlds and enemies were interesting enough, they were very similar. A lot of things were reused. A lot of enemies were reused. The game never really took any risks. Wonder takes a lot of risks, and it does a lot of crazy things at times. Like every single time I went to a level, I had no idea what I was going to expect. I remember the first time I was in a stage with one of the wonder effects going on, and then I just saw the gold pole fly past. Like, that was the end of the level. Where's it going? Where am I going to end the level now? Or of course, when the game just turned into a musical all of a sudden. I really like those parts. I really wish the game had parts that were completely lined up with the music. Like Rayman Legends with those music levels where every single attack or jump you have to do is lined up with the music. I'm not surprised they didn't do that. That's pretty hard to do that. You need to have a good song. The pace of it needs to be right, that you can jump or something at the right time and have it lined up with the music. Mario is a platformer game, not a rhythm game. But still, it would have been kind of nice if they did that. But those music levels where you jump and the music lines up with when blocks appear, I really like those. I also like that the game got fairly hard at times. Like I said, I've never completed the New Super Mario Bros. U game, so I don't know how hard that got, but I'm glad Wonder gets quite difficult at points, especially with those special levels. They can be quite difficult, and I had to restart some of them many times. One thing I'm not so sure about is the flower. That guy's weird. I haven't completed the game yet, so maybe it turns out that this flower guy is secretly the final boss or something, but so far, he doesn't seem like he really has much to the story in any way. I mean, he's just kind of there in every level, many times, saying something to you, but he doesn't really seem important at all. I kind of thought when I saw the trailer that he was going to have something important to do, but no, he's just kind of sitting there. Oh yeah, and also it's not just one. At first I thought it was just one that was following you everywhere, but it's not. This is like a species. They just all look and sound exactly the same, except for the red ones. I don't know why there's red ones. But yeah, this is just a species that just is everywhere and talks to you. It's kind of unnerving when you think about it. He also got kind of annoying at times. And by a lot of the time, I mean all the time. He was always annoying. But even though there was a setting to turn him off, I didn't really want to do that, because there were a few times where he said something like, "Don't you feel like you're missing something?" Which is kind of helpful, because you know you're missing something then. And so I didn't want to just turn him off in case it somehow turns out that there's a point where you need to listen to him. But overall, he was just kind of annoying, and I didn't really see the point of him. Though I guess it was interesting to see what he'd say at certain points. I don't know, he's weird. I don't dislike him, but I hope he doesn't come back. I also just really like the style of this game. They use a lot of patterns in pretty much everything. Whether they're stripes, polka dots, just lines in weird directions, there's always a pattern to something, and it looks really good. I've actually started using patterns a lot more in my art and UI designs for games because of this game. I don't know what it is about patterns. I guess it's just like kind of pleasing for your eyes to look at, because there's detail there, but not too much detail, and it's all even. I'm not sure what it is, but it's just very pleasing to the eye, and I'm glad they used them so much. Also, the style really reminded me of like the Sonic games, especially something like the loading screens. I mean, like, look at that checker grid edge there. It feels so much like something Sonic would do, and I'm glad they did that. Sonic games, even though I'm not really a fan of them, they do a really good job at menu designs and UI, stuff like that. I was actually having some trouble with creating designs for a menu in one of my games, but after looking at this game and how it does things, it's really helped. Something I did for practice was to closely copy one of the menus. Just kind of copy the colors they use, the sizing of all the widgets and things, patterns and how they move in the background. And just by doing that, I learned a lot. I'd recommend, if you're having trouble with making a menu, just try copying it from a game you like. You might learn a lot. Of course, don't use the copy of it, just do it for practice. I'll be curious to know, once people start breaking this game apart and dissecting it, how is it put together exactly? Like, are these all 3D models? I'm pretty sure they are. But like, how does it work exactly? Is like the camera just really zoomed in? Or are these models actually like flat? I'm not really sure. I'm curious to see how they did things, because the art in this game is really good. I also like what they did for the levels when you select them. They're just like these little miniature previews into them, similar to what they did with 3D World. Kind of reminds me of these little clay islands I used to make. I really like how these look. It feels miniature. Oh yeah, and the world map is also kind of an interesting layout for things. A lot of the time with Mario games, you just go from one place, then the next world, then the next world, then the next one. Like with some of them, like New Super Mario Bros. U, I think there was kind of a branching point at a few points. You kind of like go towards the ice world or the water world or something like that. I can't remember exactly. But with this place, you start from the left, then you go to the center, which is like the water world. But then from there, you kind of work your way around it in a clockwork rotation. You go like to the top left, and the top right, and then right. And then at the very end, you go to the center. It's an interesting way of doing things. It also makes it a bit easier to access all of them. Instead of running from the very start to the very end, you just kind of go to the center, then go down which one you want. Or of course, you can just teleport to the level. It saves a lot of time from having to walk from one to another. Alright, and now about the characters. I'm glad they give you a bit more choice. Instead of just Mario, Luigi, Toad, and Toad, you have Mario, Luigi, Toad, and Toadette, and Peach. A bit more choice. And then there's also, of course, the Yoshis and Nabbit, which at first I was glad they added them, but they're kind of like an easy mode, which, I don't know, kind of ruins them. I didn't play them at all. They're just too easy. I want a challenge. I don't want to just have an invincibility character. I mean, I know you can still die if you like fall down a pit or something, but it's not enough. If you can't take damage from getting hit, it's just too easy. I would have preferred it if all the characters were the same, but then maybe you have like an option to turn on a no hit mode. But I guess the reason why they chose having the Yoshis and Nabbit be the invincible character was because they didn't want to have to design power-ups for each of them. If they couldn't have a power-up, then they'd be at a big disadvantage. But if they did have a power-up, then they'd have to design other things like Bubble Yoshi, Fire Yoshi, Bubble Nabbit, Fire Nabbit, the drill, all those things. And it would have just, I'm sure, taken a lot longer. So I understand why they did it. I still want more characters though, the more the better. Oh yeah, and Daisy, almost forgot about her. I'm kind of surprised they added Daisy. She hasn't really done much ever, but more characters the better, so yeah, that's fine. Also, they removed the ability to spin jump on piranha plants, which I'm kind of disappointed in. I know it was a small thing, but I don't know, I always like doing that. Other than that though, they didn't really take away anything from the New Super Mario Bros. Games movement. They just added a lot more. That's something that also made the New Super Mario Bros. Games feel kind of boring. There wasn't enough movement options. They were just too slow, and you couldn't do much. You could run, you could walk, you could jump. If you had a power up, you could use it. But other than that, there wasn't much. And even though when you're on your own, your movement is still the same as the New Super Mario Bros. Games, I find there's just a lot of times when you either have a power up, or there's something weird going on, or you have a badge equipped. There's a lot more times when you have the option to do something else. So often I was doing something more than just running and jumping, whether it be gliding, jumping off a wall, floating through space, swimming. Oh yeah, and I also really like that swimming badge effect. I don't think I've ever played a water level that I actually like. And while Wonder hasn't broken that curse yet, it does make things a lot better. That swimming badge effect just makes things move so much quicker. You're basically flying to the water. It's a lot better. Overall, Wonder is just indeed a wonderful game. It's so much more creative and lively. It just has such a happy theme to it. I feel like this is the type of game you play and you just feel happy no matter what. The New Super Mario Bros. Games were kind of the opposite. I got depressed every time I played them. They're just so boring and bland, even though if you just quickly look at them, that doesn't seem like they're too different. They're both 2D platformers. They both have bright, colorful worlds, but it's just something about Wonder that's fun. And something about the New Super Mario Bros. Games that's just depressing. I'll be glad if I never see another one of those games again. I really don't know what Nintendo was thinking with making so many of them. Nintendo is usually good at making new and creative things. I'm surprised they just copied the same game so many times. I would have loved if they made a third Mario Galaxy game, or if they made a sequel to Odyssey, but for some reason they decided to make a billion sequels to New Super Mario Bros. No, I know why, it's just because it was easy. And I think they sold really well too. They must have, they made so many of them. And you can see from Mario Maker, they probably really didn't have a hard time making these games. Also, I imagine once they made Mario Maker, they realized that they couldn't keep using that style. The levels people were making are far better than any of the levels that they could make. People wouldn't keep buying New Super Mario Bros. Games if they could just get Mario Maker. Wonder is not something you can replicate on Mario Maker. At least not easily. I think people have tried, but the game's just so different and unique. I think overall, the difference between the New Super Mario Bros. Games and Wonder is just creativity, style, and energy. That's basically all that's changed with Wonder, and that's all that it needed to make the game great. I just hope they don't keep copying Wonder for a million more sequels. Not because the gameplay would be bad, I'd actually be fine with that. I just don't want to see that flower again.